Hello, everybody, and welcome to our special plant medicine series on Keep It Spiritually Simple. Across these episodes, we will peel back the layers of myth, mystery, and misinformation to get to the heart of how plant medicine supports transformation. Today, I'm so happy to welcome back our guest, Dr. Nancy, the author of Ta-da! Secret Plant Medicine. She will help us step into the wisdom behind the veil, the secrets, all the insanities, and what's really plant medicine and what it's all about. And so it's just a way of our expanding our mind and deciding, hey, this is some pretty cool information. Instead of reading and listening to the news, I can read about something on Mother Earth that could be helpful to me or to others. So again, welcome, Dr. Nancy.
Thank you. Always happy to be back with you.
Well, are we ready to dive into some more? By the way, you guys,
We
this
are.
is, as I said, this is a series. So this is like number 5, maybe even number 6. Who knows? Doesn't matter. Just go back through and listen to the other ones because you're going to fall in love with the information. It's going to be like, oh, I want to go to the next. I want to go to the next. I want to dive a little deeper. I want to understand it. And if you want to jump over to YouTube, Sandra McEllis, and see us over here because you can see us here versus hearing us over there. And sometimes it brings the picture together even more. So anyway, let's go ahead. Let's jump in, shall we?
All right, we'll continue with our different points. And we are still on chapter 1. And I've got a number of bullet points I wanted to go over, and then we discuss them as they come up.
Great.
Our next one is highly trained shaman are able to communicate with these spirits in the spirit world, treat illnesses, which shamans consider illnesses of different kinds, where we're talking mental, emotional, physical, as spiritual imbalances. They also go on visionary quests and ask spirit guides for answers. Women also can become powerful shaman and healers. In most cases, after the child raising years are completed, some women in indigenous cultures will train to become shamanistic healers. There is no difference between men and women in the ability to become a shaman. Women are more intuitive by nature and therefore have a greater potential to become master, potent healers. Another point here is having an experienced guide is most important when entering unearthly realms. A master guide will know the different spiritual dimensions and provide protection if a guest traveler encounters difficulties. From youth, a shaman is trained when internship starts for additional years under guidance of a master shaman to show the ability to travel and learn etherical territories and possible dangers of these extra dimensional realities. They have to demonstrate their skills as an accomplished guide and an adept healer and communicate with the plant and animal spirits, navigate the different spirit realms and beings that inhabit them, and reach spiritual mastership to have the power to protect entheogenic participants while on their journey during sacred plant ceremonies. Currently, in modern societies, people have popped up claiming to be shamans who have no lineage or who have not demonstrated to an advanced master shaman their skills or abilities. They mislead people to think that their entheogenic journeys are spiritually protected and that accurate healings are available. Shamanism is closely related to the term ecstasy, which comes from the Greek word ekstasis. I'll spell that Ekstasis. I'll spell it again. Ekstasis. It's defined as to leave the body. Another expression is flight of the soul, is used to describe the mystical experience. It is the shaman who is well trained in these ecstatic states of consciousness. A well-trained shaman will be able to work with the master plant teachers who are the entheogenic plants, which allows for the consciousness of the participant to leave the body and travel into different dimensions. The sacred plant teachers are seen as gods in the ancient cultures for their ability to change the participants' perception of themselves and the world around them. These entheogenic plants had the power to expand one's consciousness, which is why they were held in such high esteem and considered godlike in nature for their transcendent abilities. There will always be shamans on this planet to help humanity in their evolution and awakening process with the aid of entheogenic plants that provide the psycho spiritual medicine. Was there anything there that you wanted to touch on?
No, I'm just absorbing all of the
Okay,
information.
all right, I'll continue. There is a close relationship between the shaman and the plants. However, it takes a lot of time to develop this trust and bond between them. The shaman sings Ikaros songs to the plants and must participate in a dieta, which is a strict diet and lifestyle. This dieta, seclusion period, demonstrates to the plants that they are willing to leave society, go out into the forest, and spend time with the spirits of the plants. Dietas are done every so often to keep this connection to commune and communicate with the plant kingdom. During the dieta, wisdom from the plant spirits, basically it's the plant consciousness intelligence, are shared with the shaman. After a period of time, the shaman will come out of retreat with the plants and go back into the village or society to perform sacred plant ceremonies. People in the modern world can no longer hear the plants sing to them. They are too concerned by modern technology, removed from nature, and no longer connected to the plant kingdom. When an entheogen is introduced into a person's body, the default mode network in the brain is reduced so the participant can disengage from the ego and connect with other dimensional realities within them. The plants and flowers know exactly how to communicate with the nervous system and emotions of humans. The plants know what is needed, and communication is provided, for there are receptors in the brain that recognize all plant essences and are waiting for these messages. The intelligence of the plant cells has the ability to communicate directly with the human cells. Now, this is very interesting because most people think that this intelligence, that basically the plants can cross uh, really all barriers, and the communication is amazing how it's so clear. You know, people will say in these sacred ceremonies they heard very clearly what was, being explained to them and shared with them. They were shown a lot of images. A lot of times there wasn't any words that needed to take place because it was very telepathic. But the plants go in and they basically read you completely. There's no secrets held, and they want to know what soul group you belong to, who's standing in line to wait to talk to you, what experiences you need to have. I mean, a lot of times when you have signed up to do this type of ceremony, the process begins, the communication starts, and with your soul, with the particular plant teacher that has called you, and it begins. You can actually start connecting telepathically, whether it can be internally or externally, and talk to the plant teachers, and they will prepare you for the ceremony. And then you are asked to have certain intentions before you go in. Like there's an intention you need to have before you go into every ceremony, and you set an intention as to what you'd like to either receive or experience or that type of thing. And they're very easily able to cross all these barriers and communicate very easily with our nervous system and our intelligence. So during the sacred entheogenic plant ceremony, the shaman raises their vibration to a high frequency of energy so they have the power to see into the future, the past, and currently what is taking place in the participant's life. There are different levels of shaman that allow the ability to have this dominion over the physical world. The two highest levels are Banco Sumai, I'll spell that, BANCO space SUMI, and Sumaruna, SUMIRUNA. And once a shaman reaches these two levels, they have the privilege of the ability to see beyond this third dimensional reality. They do have celestial beings. We do have celestial beings walking this planet in the form of Banco Sumai level shamans. They are incarnated celestial beings, and so therefore they easily rise to these levels of shaman in order to heal and help humanity. Now the other one, the Sumiruna, SUMIRUNA, are souls that are humans who have risen their vibrational frequency high enough to achieve this level of Sumiruna shaman. An eagle in the shamanistic cultures is a representation of humans' ability to rise above the human weaknesses and accomplish self-mastery of divine spiritual truths. After an entheogenic experience, it is reported that many change their life due to the esoteric nature of the exploration event. Plant life, animals, and in fact, all of life seem to take on more meaning and significance, a new way of living in the world that offers living in greater harmony so as not to hurt other living species on this planet. Most people, when first exposed to the idea of master plant teachers, will not take it seriously. Yet ask any indigenous people around the world, especially a vegetalista shaman, and they will tell you straightforwardly that plants are sentient beings, and within the plant kingdom, there are plant teachers who are here to help humanity to awaken. The awakening of humanity would cause peace, harmony, and unity, as well as an increase in spiritual awareness that will save not only humans, but also all of life living here and the planet itself. All species want to live without harm and enjoy their life. I'm just taking a break to see if there was something that grabbed you. You wanted to.
No, I kind of have pre-read it a little bit, so I was just taking it all in.
Okay.
As the listeners are, I just want to absorb it. I just want to just sort of listen to see what you're sharing without interjecting.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Plant-based entheogens have been used for thousands of years, and medical researchers are not acknowledging this fact. Any documented information prior to modern times seems to be viewed as irrelevant. Entheogens have been proven and used all around the world for millennia to heal mental, emotional, and physical ailments. Shamans who are well trained specialize in these areas and are considered legitimate healers. Western science is still trying to catch up with the deeper wisdoms of plant intelligence and all the botanical apothecary that is available to humanity. The vegetalista shaman knows that hidden wisdoms are shared by the plants. As far back as antiquity, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates were participants of sacred plant entheogenic ceremonies and were given many esoteric wisdoms that helped shape Greek culture. The mystery schools had entheogenic plant ceremonies as initiates into the esoteric wisdoms. These initiates learn that the plants will talk with them and will allow travel to different realms. Plants also help us in curing disease. They provide nourishment and they are excellent teachers. While in many plant ceremonies over the course of time, in the dieta program, these dietas are for training as a new shaman or continuing education for an experienced shaman. So there's training for whether it be for those that are new and up and coming and those that are coming back and just continually going deeper into their training. The plant teachers will become jealous if ignored or if the vowed agreements are not honored. Hence, they need to go into dieta, for the shaman's attention is required and expected several times a year. Shamans know that their healing abilities come from these plant spirits. These plants are conscious and have been known to cause shamans emotional and physical issues that have broken their initiation rites, causing the shamans to come back to honor their spiritual disciplines. Once an individual has taken the vows of being a vegetalista shaman, their connection with the plant teachers, I skip the page, and to continue their connection with the animal spirits is sacred. The plant teacher spirits will feel betrayed if the shaman vows are broken, causing the close connection to be removed, thereby creating situations for the vegetalista shaman to see what has happened. Usually it is an older shaman who realizes that these agreements with the master plant consciousness are serious and not to be taken lightly. I'm not sure if I shared this on one of your episodes, but there was I had a conversation with a no, actually this is in my research. I was reading in one of the books, and it talked about how there was this young female shaman from the United States, gone to Peru, was down in Peru for several years, getting her training. She took her initiation vows. When you take your vows, they are for life. It's not like, okay, well, it got a little hard for me and I've changed my mind. No, this is something that is for life, and that's why it's to be taken very seriously. And so she comes back to the United States, and after about 6 months, she's really sick. I mean, she's really, really sick, very, very ill. And so apparently, she writes to her shamans, teachers in Peru, and they connect with her spirit guides and also the particular plants that she had taken initiation with those particular master plant teachers. And it was communicated to the master shamans in Peru that she had broken her initiation vows, and it's a solemn vow. And so uh, that she, I think she took it a little lightly, and so therefore, the reason she was sick was the plants were trying to get her attention, and they were trying to say something's wrong with your lifestyle. And there are vows that you take that you are not allowed to do. Your lifestyle is changed. And just because you go back into modern life doesn't mean you have a modern lifestyle. And so she was told what she had done wrong. And therefore she had to basically reevaluate her initiatory vows that she had taken, and which she realized they do not play. One of them was you're not to have casual sex. That was one of them. You're not to eat chocolate. That was another one. I'm not sure about the alcohol. I think maybe that was in there, maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure on that one, but there was certain ones that they had talked about, and I was like, gosh, I never realized that it affect, these initiatory vows. There are certain do's and don'ts in your lifestyle that you can no longer participate in. Go ahead.
So I have a question. I can understand the casual sex energetically. I understand all the connection of that. I'm sure most do. But chocolate?
I thought
Like,
that was
I mean,
very
I don't like it,
interesting.
but I'm just curious. I'll have cacao and sacred cacao and things like that, but I don't do chocolate, standard American chocolate. What is, I mean, I'm like,
That's the first thing that came into my
oh,
mind
you're sick because, well, you broke your vow and because you ate chocolate. I'm confused by that. So do you happen to know a reason why that is? Like,
You
what is
know,
chocolate to a shaman? I know
I
it's a
don't know
plant,
that
it's
I
a
know it
plant,
at
but
that level,
oh,
because I haven't been explained to, but I do know that some of these plants do not get along with other, I don't want to say other plants, but other essences. Like, for example, ayahuasca, you cannot have any marijuana or hemp in your body for 30 days. She does
Yes.
not want that essence in your temple, in your human physical temple. And so I think that there is certain essences when you work with certain plants that maybe it's not that they don't get along, maybe it's just because it changes the communications within the brain. Maybe there's influence somehow that affects us. But yeah, that was yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It is
So
interesting, and I quickly Googled it because I'm just so super
yeah.
curious. And it says a shaman might avoid chocolate due to its association with ayahuasca diets, which prohibit trimane, rich foods to prevent severe physical reactions during ceremony.
Mhm.
History, chocolate was prestigious and intoxicating drink reserved for male leaders, not women or children. Additionally, some spiritual traditions viewed it as intoxicating or a devil's tool because of its high caffeine and content. Um, and anyway, it goes on and on and on. So you're right. It could have like a complete
Mhm.
interaction with the shaman's body, and the shaman is to keep their body in alignment with not just its vows, but with all of its training. So yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, so you can't have that interfere. So there would be like one plant is trying to dominate the other plant when they're inside someone's body, possibly, right? And cancel one out.
Nutmeg is another one. You cannot have
Interesting.
nutmeg 30 days prior to doing an ayahuasca ceremony.
Mm.
Can't do nutmeg. So there are different essences, and this is again another reason why you can just
Jump in
show
and
up
do
at
it.
some ceremony and doing this work and not know what to do. Or I mean, if you're really going into a really a good, I should say, organization or a place, they're going to talk to you and prepare you for this type of work. So, I mean, and also people need to realize and take it seriously when they say no meat for 30 days, do not eat meat for 30 days. Because if you're expecting to walk away with a life changing, impactful experience, and then you don't honor what's been asked of you,
Yeah.
well, that's your own fault because you were told. Look, I mean, some people, they seem to think that they can't live without the protein of animal protein, but 10 almonds equal a steak in protein.
Hmm.
Peas are very high in protein. I mean, if you look at any of these protein drinks, these plant-based protein drinks, if you look at the list of ingredients, the number one ingredient is dried, ground up uh, uh, green peas.
Yes.
And then the second
Yes.
ingredient is probably cocoa, and the second one is sugar. So it's
Yes.
chocolate covered, sugared, dried up uh, peas.
Peas.
So, I mean, that tells you the power of a lot of these. There is a lot of nuts are very high, and people say, well, they're high in fat, but it's plant-based fat. It's not animal fat. It's not going to coat your arteries and capillaries and things like that. So, I mean, I know people will eat meat and they'll just wait 2 weeks prior to ceremony, and I'm like, well, that's between you and the plant teacher. You made that choice, but you said you were gonna, you were ready to do this type of work. And so, I mean, I just can't stress enough to people that this is a sacred ceremony. These plants are very, very sacred, and what they do is so powerful, and we take it too lightly because we're so used to, no, I mean, this is very serious. What we eat, what we intake affects us in so many different ways. So yeah,
Sure. And
share
it
that.
and the plant's going to tattle on you. It's going to come out because
Mhm.
you haven't made you tweaked your commitment by being deceitful, and that's always going to show up. But you wouldn't have a sports figure going to go into a competition and them at the last minute, shape up, right? It's a long process and a commitment to
Mhm.
not just themselves, but to all that is involved in that competition. It would be the same thing if you're committing to having an experience or becoming a teacher. It's a life change, it's a complete lifestyle change and a commitment. And you ever notice that when you're really committed to something and what the consequences on a spiritual level, much less mental and physical level, it's a
Mhm.
whole different no. It's like, can't, won't do it. There's just a conviction there, a feeling of like, I can't betray my soul. I can't betray my commitment and a
Mhm.
vow, which are much, very deep into that. So, all right, keep going, girl. Keep going.
Okay, so oh, it was here. It was here. I had ate chocolate, casual sex, and drank alcohol. Those were her three things that she did. So yeah, it was so that was it. So basically the spirits will feel betrayed if the shaman's vows are broken, causing the close connection to be removed, thereby creating situations for the vegetalist shaman to see what has happened. And the sacred brew of ayahuasca allows the master shaman to see the avatar. Oh, this was very interesting. This is actually something that I found in my research. When you talk to these shamans, especially in Peru and Brazil, um, they see a lot more than we do because they can see beyond the third dimensional reality. So they'll see these avatar angels protecting the earth, and these angels impart supernatural energy to the plant kingdom. And the Mastro shamans can see in their visions the angelic powers at work. Many participants have stated that they have met angelic and galactic beings during their mystical experiences during the ceremonies. And this is a direct quote, actually, I'm going to read next. This is basically what a shaman had said in one of his books that I read. He stated that extraterrestrial ships visit Earth frequently. They come from parallel universes, and shamans learn arcane wisdoms from them. So apparently, the Amazon has so many different plants, and apparently, these galactic races come to the Earth for a variety of different things that they need, and one of them is vegetation, different types of vegetation, gold, silver, copper, all these precious metals that are highly conductive in technology. And so I just thought that was fascinating because they'll talk about these as if, it's very common. They'll see a lot of these craft come in at night, in the middle of the night, land and that type of thing. And they realize that we share the planet with a lot of other races. So
Mm. Well, I just
yeah.
want you to know I looked up nutmeg, and if you have overdoses of nutmeg, it's an hallucinogenic. I'm just
Mm,
curious of like, but then again, it's so strong, you can only use a pinch in any of your recipes. So I
yeah.
thought, nutmeg, how could nutmeg? So just curious. And so, of course, Google knows everything,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Always
yeah.
rely
It's
on Google. Yeah. So anyway, just touched on it. Just that
You
it
know,
was,
that's a good one to
yeah.
Google all spices and herbs that are not conducive to ayahuasca usage, or before you
Yeah.
do a sacred ceremony, ethnogenic type ceremony or psychedelic ceremony, however they want to word that. It would be interesting to see the list of what comes up. There was a number of things I was told. You can't eat these 30 days prior. We want it completely out of your bloodstream. And so yeah, I had those I had remembered. But I know there's more, and it's
Mhm.
always a good reminder to go back in. And so, I suggest to people, if you're interested in doing this type of work, and again, I'm going to say this isn't for everybody. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, everybody should do this. This is for everybody. It's the best thing since sliced bread and all this. No, it's not. It is not for everybody. And I say, if you're not being called by a plant teacher, then you're not obviously ready, because the plant teachers will call you when you're ready. And I think that you'll know when you're being called, and that's why there's this expression in the entheogenic community of, did you heard the call, and there'll be a particular plant teacher that wants to work with you. And how do you know that? Well, it's everywhere. It's on the internet. All of a sudden you turn on the radio and there's song singing about this, or you go into a store and I kind of chuckling because I was away for 3 weeks, and everywhere I went, there was these these little psychedelic mushrooms in the different shops. They had, I mean, they were kind of like plastic ones or wooden ones, or they weren't the real ones, but they had the red caps with the white dots on them, and they had them in different shapes and forms, and some had faces on them, and this was these were at different, all kinds of shops everywhere. I was surprised that it's like, wow, they're appearing, they're showing themselves, um, the psychedelic mushroom. So, and mascara. So it's just, I never had seen that before until just this past year. And you'd be amazed at how this kind of shows up in people's lives, and the different ways the plant teachers will call the different souls to have their awakening, or their different types of healing that's needed for them.
Well, they're leaving all their little plant crumbs. Come to the kingdom of plants. We're going to leave you little crumbs everywhere, and we'll tell you who's calling you. And well, I think that's what the importance of doing this series is, so people, not because, for anyone to go, do a journey, but it's to understand it a little bit better, to release the taboo, to give some educational wisdom and experience points, from you, who I find, the plant expertise of ayahuasca and others. So I think it's important, that people understand it, because you're hearing more and more about it on the news. There's studies being done on it, multiple different places for multiple different things. And so for it to be for an everyday person, doesn't have to, you may say, well, I really haven't had a lot of trauma, but I really like to explore this or that, then listen to these videos and see if, you can get yourself more educated. And if you're truly interested, grab some of Dr. Nancy's books, especially this one that's on my lap. Yep. Master Plant Teacher, that we're going over right now. All right. Well, do you have a few more things you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, there is one thing. It's interesting. You were talking, and I thought of this. It may not be that a particular person is called to do ceremonial work with a particular plant teacher. It could be that we have in the future, we're going to have all these different clinics across the country, in the different states in the United States, that will offer, at some point, I really see in the future, doctors prescribing psilocybin, or prescribing, different plant essences to help people with their different ailments. And to them, they're going to think that this is just so foreign that they wouldn't normally accept this type of treatment. But through the educational process of listening to these videos and seeing that there is an intelligence to these plants, they are botanical, they don't hurt you. I mean, obviously you have to respect them. You don't want to take too much, too many milligrams, but there is a level that's healing level, and then there's a level that is ceremonial level. And so depending on what you're trying to do, there would be lower grades of milligrams that could help with the healing aspects of emotional, mental, and physical ailments. And so I think that part of it is, and I'll give you an example. I had a friend who, I was at a spiritual conference years ago, and he was an MD, and he said he had a patient come to him, and he was having all these difficulties, and the medication just wasn't working. And so he said, well, why don't you try, what is it? Oh, my mind, it just escapes me. It's the one where you put the needles in the different parts of the body. It's very Chinese and Asian.
Acupuncture?
Acupuncture, thank you. Just escaped me.
That's
And
all right.
so he was recommending acupuncture, and the patient's response was, well, I don't want to try that new age treatment. And the doctor is trying to keep from laughing, because he does, the patient doesn't understand that this goes back centuries, way before modern, what we call modern medicine. And I'm not putting down pharmaceuticals. I'm not putting down any other forms of treatment. What I'm saying is there's other modalities that the body will respond to, and it may not necessarily be the most modern day treatment. And so because he had not had any exposure or education or any idea of the history or the potential of the healing process of acupuncture, he quickly rejected it. So if anything, if let's say in the future we have these, or I should say, when in the future we have these treatment centers, the people are going to be more likely able to accept this form of treatment because they've been educated and prepared for it. So it's not just ceremonial work that these plants that people will be exposed to. I know that people, when they go through research with the different type of mushrooms in the research, and I mean, we're talking big hospitals here, UCLA, NYU, John Hopkins, things like this that are doing this type of research and have been for at least 25 years, at least. Maybe now it's up to 30. That people are asking for this type of treatment, like I talk about in my book, End of Life Crises. People know they have less than a year to live. They're afraid, they're scared, they don't understand. And so they go through one of these studies and they find they have these experiences on the other side, and they're like, I'm ready to go. I don't have anything to fear. I've met with my, friends and family and spirit guides and angelic guide and all that on the other side. And they just said, it's time, there's another school for you on the other side. You're done with the earth school. And so it completely changes their perspective. It's life changing. They tell their friends about it. Their friends are ready to try this as well, but they're not in the research study, so they don't have access to it. There's no clinics available that can prescribe this, and people can work with these different plants. So I think, if anything, that's why I say that these videos are educational purposes only. I'm not trying to tell people, hey, you need to run off and do all these illegal substances. It's not that at all. This is definitely about research and expanding people's awareness of the power of these psychotropic plants that we have on the planet with, actually share the planet with.
I think it's very important for people to understand, because I think we're giving some pathway to the roots of what's going on here. I remember back in the early 90s having an accident that I had to wait for cervical surgery till after I gave birth to my daughter. And so between physical therapy and medication, and there was no other options for me to get out of pain. And I couldn't stand the medication because I couldn't function as a mother, and it upset my stomach. And there was a little creative school teacher down the street that had like a creative arts and crafts. So my 2-year-old was going there, and she had gone through massage school. And then she said, "Do you want to just try it for your pain?" And I said, I had never heard of a massage. I didn't know what it was. Who did that, right? And so I went and I began to experience it. And wow, between it alleviating my pain and keeping me off medications, it also expanded me emotionally. Got into some real root issues of many of that was around it. So much so that I had to go to school for it. I wanted to give back to the community what I was receiving later down the road. And at that time, there was nothing known about it. It was embarrassing. It was considered sexual parlors, when you got massages. And while I was in school, Time magazine came out with, one of the most therapeutic healing things was massage. And so I opened my own center up and began that journey, which is taking me down a whole other journey of exploring. But I wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for my own pain and knowing that there was something else out there. And so, as we've seen, what's happened in the last 25 to 30 years is Eastern healing has now become more mainstream. No one did acupuncture. Nobody did massage. Very few people did herbs or Bach flowers, or it just, and it was always poo-pooed or dominated by the pharmaceutical world because it was easier, and then it was modern. It was easy to monitor as well as have your insurance cover it, right? But we've come a long way. And I really do believe the more we continue to talk about the power of plant medicine and talk about it in ways that you're explaining it, I think that, again, this is just going to roll off people's tongues and keep going. It's going to gain momentum till it becomes, hey, I had a massage. Hey, I had an acupuncture. Hey, I saw the chiropractor. Hey, I'm taking herbs. That is so mainstream now That is
Mm-hmm.
no more, granola crunchy, Birkenstock wearing folk that I knew back in the day. And now it's everybody does it across the board of all levels, financially, um, everything. They all do it. Almost everybody will do it or wish they could do more of it based on how much they receive, healing work and tremendous overcoming of any health, and anytime you overcome those, you're also digging deep into the emotional component,
Mm-hmm.
and things will come up. And so I think what you're talking about is, I think we just need to keep talking about it, Nancy.
Yeah, it's I think we're in the beginnings, I think,
Mhm.
but I think it's now becoming mainstream. And I think at some point, the laws will change about taking some of these plants that are non-toxic and non-addictive and actually anti-addictive because they're
Mhm.
taking people off heroin and some of these other hard drugs. And but yet all these plants, these different psychotropic plants are placed on Schedule 1 level, which is classified as the most dangerous, the most toxic, and the most addictive. And that's just not true. I mean,
Yeah.
it's mislabeled. It's completely mislabeled. And so we really need to take a look at these laws, which they did do with marijuana. And I think that's the first step. Actually, it's a good sign, because now that's you have places where you can go. I know in Florida you could go to a doctor and get a what they call it's a medical marijuana card, and
Mhm.
then they can go in and go to a dispensary and get what they need. And so I think that that's the beginning. And then I think other plants will be added, psychotropic plants will be added. Now, these particular is CBD is what they're prescribing. They're not subscribing to the THC. Some of them, I in some cases, I think that now, I could be wrong on this. In some cases, THC could be in some of the prescriptions because if people have had back surgery or they're waiting to have back surgery and they're just in a lot of pain and they don't want to be addicted to maybe a pharmaceutical type high level narcotic, I believe that point, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not sure at the levels, and each state has different levels what doctors are allowed to prescribe or not, but if I'm remembering correctly, I think THC in some cases they can prescribe that as well to the patient, but obviously they can't be driving and that type of thing. So there's a warning with that, but on the prescription. So yeah, again, I believe that part of this is the educational process. I think for years they had to educate the public because you had to vote, like the state of Florida, in order for that to get passed, it came up for vote. And the voters in the state of Florida said yes. They were educated enough to know that it wasn't something that was going to be a curse on the society, of the state of
Mhm.
Florida, that it would actually be a benefit and a healing. But that took a long time to pass the legislature to even put it up for vote. And then when it came up for vote, you had to make sure your public was very well aware that they weren't just going to vote it down, and so it passed. And so I think that this is the process of what we're doing is we're educating people to the power of the plants and all the ways that they can heal us in so many different ways. So what may work for one, may not work for another. Like there's a member of people, like the person who shared with me on a prior episode that we talked about, where the woman had lost her child and she was devastated. She was traumatized by it. I mean, she just couldn't even function. She couldn't
Can
work. She
imagine.
was a mess. And she was angry at God. God had taken her child away from her. Why? It was her firstborn. She didn't know she could she just was so it
Grief
really,
stricken.
yeah, I mean, it just crushed her and she just couldn't even go on anymore. And so then somebody had suggested for her to go into and take ayahuasca, go into a sacred ceremony And she did, and it just changed her whole life. And she was able to start again. She now has other children, and but before she didn't even want to be on the planet anymore. She was just so devastated. She was done.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, she tried everything. There was nothing that could console her. Nothing in the medical field, nothing in the psychological field. There was nothing that could touch her, that could reach her. And yet this powerful plant intelligence, this essence, this power, Mother Ayahuasca, she touched her and she healed her and it changed her life. And now it's just so interesting that she's just like, if it wasn't for Mother Ayahuasca, I don't know if I'd still be here on the planet, is what this mother, this grief-stricken mother who had lost her child was saying. And so now turn it around, and now of course, who do you think is going to be a very powerful advocate for Mother Ayahuasca? Because she said
Sure.
she changed my life, and I can say the same for myself. I mean, my life is completely different since I was in my sacred ceremonies with ayahuasca, and I came for spiritual purposes only, and for spiritual attainments that I've been working on for years and years and years. I mean, it was just 20 years, and meditation wasn't enough to get over that, cross that veil. They get through the ego death and cross over these other dimensions. So some people can do it, some people require a little more. And so I think as time goes by, I think that we're going to start to see legislature change. And I think the younger generation is seeing that there was an overreaction to throw these in Schedule One, and now it's time to release them from their jail of being listed as Schedule One and classified as illegal, and nobody has access to them. You do not
Yeah.
have access to them in this country, and even a doctor can't write you a prescription for these plant essences. And it's really unfortunate because it keeps people away from these unnecessarily. And so I'm not saying that everybody should just run out and have full access to them. They definitely need to be controlled. People have died under these because they had certain diseases, they were on certain medications that was contrary on indicators to these plants, psychotropic plants. And so, of course, the medical field knows of this. I had to have clearance by a medical doctor before I went in for my plant ceremonies. And so it does need to be, controlled at a certain level. But what we're talking about is, yes, it needs to be controlled, but at the same time, it needs to be given access to the public in a controlled system. And I think that by opening up treatment centers is really a way that it benefits both, the medical and the legislatures. They have their control over it, but at the same time, it's a win for the public too, because then they're given access to these psychotropic plants.
Well, I think we'll have more and more advocates for it. I mean, look what Bobby Kennedy's doing for, hormone replacement and all kinds of other things, and getting the word out about, the truth about vaccines and what your choices are and what you can learn about the ingredients. And I think
Mhm.
we're going to learn more and more and more. And I think plant medicine is going to really step up the more
Mhm.
we're talking about it. So, Dr. Nancy, I mean, I cannot wait till our next episode because I know you've got so much to review and share just from your book, your personal experiences, and just from experiences that others have gone through. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time again to be on Keep It Spiritually Simple.
It's my pleasure.
And let's get us scheduled. But in the meantime, you guys don't miss any upcoming episodes. Just show your support and hit subscribe. Appreciate the likes and the comments, etc. And always appreciate the shares. So here we go. Say goodbye, Nancy.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.